Safiya, Lioness for Liberation, Presente. She had not long passed the half-century mark when her great and powerful heart gave out, 53 years young, with a spirit that was ageless in its love and courage. Sister Safiya Bukhari has returned to the ancestors. She was many things to many people: daughter, mother, grandmother, teacher, disciplinarian, soldier, and comrade, former Black Panther, former combatant in the Black Liberation Army, thinker, truth teller, activist, and organizer. These were some of the many things she did in her short yet extraordinary life. These things, while undoubtedly significant, do not really begin to tell those who did not know her who she really was. For many, especially many of the nameless and unknown soldiers from various movements still behind bars, she was a lifeline. They knew that she would do whatever was necessary to defend and, if possible, liberate them. They knew that her great, loving Black heart would not turn away from them as they dwelled in bondage. She worked tirelessly for Black political prisoners like the New York Three, like Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and others whose names may be little more than distant memories. She was herself a former political prisoner and spent almost a decade in the dungeons of Virginia, and also spent several years on that state's notorious death row. When she couldn't get the medical treatment that she knew she deserved, she escaped to find the life-saving treatment that Virginia denied her. But like her spiritual grandmother, Harriet Tubman, freedom was not hers alone. She worked long and strong for the liberation of her beloved Black people. What may surprise many, however, was her original political orientation. She came from a deeply religious and, she would hate the word, conservative family. As a bougie sorority sister, she came to Harlem to study the needs of the Black poor while completing her studies. She thought people were poor because they were too lazy to work. What she saw in Harlem, the poverty and hopelessness of the people, as well as the deceit of the cops, radicalized her and led her to the gates of the Harlem Black Panther Party. She, who was once a conservative, became a revolutionary, and she never, ever stopped. It is in that spirit that I share with you the words of Safiya Bukhari, learned through the raw experiences of life. Quote, "The hard, painstaking work of changing ourselves into new beings, of loving ourselves and our people and working with them to create a new reality, this is the first revolution, that internal revolution. I'm coming to understand what the old ones meant when they sang the words, 'The race is not given to the swift, nor is it given to the strong, but to him that endures to the end,' and what was meant by the fable of the hare and the tortoise. Some people declare themselves to be revolutionaries, members of one organization or another, i.e., I was one of the first Panthers, or I used to be a Panther, and only come out when there's some major celebration where Panthers are on display and live off their former glory, not understanding that it's not about what you used to be, but what you are doing now. They ran a quick race, utilizing all for the moment, and grew tired and gave up. It may take a little longer to do it the hard way, slow and methodical, building a movement step by step and block by block. But doing it this way is designed to build a strong foundation that will withstand the test of time and the attack of the enemy," unquote. That's from Safiya Bukhari's unpublished manuscript called Reflections, Musings, and Political Opinions. I say to you, many who have known her and many who did not, Safiya Bukhari was a true revolutionary, patient, constant, disciplined, loving, and determined. Safiya was a revolutionary who, like the Cuban internationalist Che Guevara, was motivated by great feelings of love. It is truly a shame that she left this life so early, but it can be said with certainty that she lived her life with freedom in her rifle scope. She was a woman warrior who should be an inspiration to us all. Remember her by making her dream reality. From Death Row, this is Mumia Abu Jamal.
Greetings and good afternoon free the land, free some land. How y'all doing? This is Rootwork here on Black Power Media. My name is Thandisizwe Chimurenga, and want to welcome you to this, our third Black August study and struggle session. We're talking about Safiya Bukhari, the Lioness for Liberation. Our guest today is Baba Jalil Muntaqim, and I see he's with us now. He is traveling. I don't want to delay him uh, too long. Have some things I want to get to today. We'll get to them after we speak with Baba Jalil. But I do want to say this, though. Had a lot of technical difficulties last week, and I get frustrated by that. And the reason I get frustrated by that, one of my comrades already got on me about apologizing all the time, so I'm not apologizing. But I want you to understand, I don't know all of my comrades here on Black Power Media. Some I've worked with, some I know by reputation. I think it's fair to say that all of us take this very seriously. We understand that we are in a war for the minds of our people, a propaganda war. Not only does that include information, it also includes presentation. And I'm always thinking about, I know you're going to be tripping off this, I'm always thinking about Eddie Murphy's Raw when he talks about the Ritz cracker versus the saltine cracker. You know, we are used to getting mediocre and poor quality, and I don't like being a part of that. So I'm going to continue to do what I can do to bring my standards, my presentation standards up to par. I think I got a fairly good handle on the content. It's these presentation skills that's wearing me out. So I'm going to keep working on that. But right now, let's go to our guest who is literally on the road. We see we got his seatbelt on so he stays safe. Baba Jalil Muntaqim, free the land. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Free land by any means necessary. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, I'm doing okay under the circumstances. Yes, I'm right now in Ithaca. We had I brought one of our young ones to Ithaca to go to college, to start college. So she's enrolled in college and you're going to start another chapter in her life. And so I'm on the road with the family, take care of that. And then tomorrow I'll be on the road going to Miami, make a presentation at the National Black Caucus for the Teamsters Union. They asked me to come down and make a presentation to them. That'll be on Saturday. So I'll be traveling down there tomorrow for that purpose. We are on the move as our comrades in Philadelphia, I like to say, and that's become part of our slogan and our understanding of the struggle that we engaged in, that we have to be on the move. Like Safiya Bukhari, that sister was on the move, right, from day one. I remember when I first met her years ago. In fact, I met her while I was in the underground. I was in the underground, and she was above ground. She was taking care of the Harlem office at the time before she went underground. And she was able to, by virtue of our organization, underground organization, she was able to give me a plane ticket, right, to travel while I was under. And but I didn't know her by that name. I knew her by her Nam Guerrero name, her underground name at that time. Didn't know who she was until years later when she came to visit me. And I recognized her. I said, "Don't I know you from someplace?" And then she said, "Yeah, I was the sister that gave you the plane ticket so you can move out when you had to move out." And yeah, and so she has always been one that been engaged. She believed in working with the people, first of all, right? And she was loyal, right, and dedicated to the struggle.
Absolutely.
So years later, she inherited the responsibilities of the Harlem office of the Black Panther Party when the Panther 21 was arrested, right? Illegally arrested, quote-unquote arrest, right? Trying to destroy the party. So she took over for the most part to try to keep the party going, keep the office going. And at some point in time, there was who was on the inside was trying to get out, and she was recruited to support the efforts to getting us out, helping us, straight up to escape, right? And as part of that activity, part of that work, she had to go underground. She and a couple other comrades had to go underground, and eventually, I think it was in Missouri. No, not Missouri.
Virginia.
Virginia. Thank you. Right. She was captured and had to serve time in Goochland, Virginia. Goochland, Virginia, institution prison. Um, uh, so when she went inside prison, one thing that talk about her spirit, right? Her determination. They kept her in isolation for a long period of time. I think she writes about this in her book called The War Before, right?
Yes.
And she talked about how she had a fear of snakes, right? The reptiles, and she had to go inside herself, right, deep inside herself, to understand that if I got a fear of snakes, how am I gonna deal with this issue or struggle, right? And then she resolved to overcome that fear, right, within herself in that capacity. One of the things about her and the work that we were doing about her and her personality in general was that she never gave up, right?
Right.
She never gave up the fight, right? Even while she was inside. Um, she had to deal with some of the racist women inside, Nazis and Aryan Brotherhood women inside, right? And she held her own. I made to make sure that they respected her and her position and her politics and who she was as a woman, engaging in struggle. At one point, she found that her she was ill. I think she had fibroids, right? And she wasn't getting the proper medical attention that she deserved, right? As a incarcerated slave, as we all know, the prison system is essentially a slave plantation. So as an incarcerated slave, they wouldn't give her the proper medical attention, right? As they did when we was enslaved, or when we was enslaved, they didn't give us proper medical attention either, right? So what she did, she escaped.
Mm-hmm.
She left the prison, right? Found a way and escaped, right? And went and got her medical treatment that she needed,
Actually.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Once she got captured again, and she came back, they brought her back to Goochland and took her to trial for escaping. She defended herself. Didn't have an attorney. She defended herself and won. She said she escaped out of necessity, right? And the law essentially provides that in certain extreme situations. And she proved that they would not provide her the proper medical treatment that she needed, and therefore she escaped. And she came back. Well, they captured her. She got back. She went to trial for escape. She defended herself and that and won. Right. That's the kind of spirit Safiya Bukhari had. Right.
Yes.
And upon her being eventually paroled, right, she returned back to the struggle. Didn't skip a beat. Got right back into it. And as a course of that, she began to fighting for the release of political prisoners,
Mm-hmm.
right, our comrades. And at one point in time, the provincial government of Republican New Africa, they usually have marches around the White House called the Jericho marches. That's where, and in 1996, they stopped. And I didn't understand why, because I felt that these marches was important, although they're just once a year. But at that 1 year march, it highlighted the existence of political prisoners, particularly Black and New African political prisoners, right? And they stopped. So I put out a petition and said, "Listen, we need to restart and establish these marches around the White House, right, and continue to build a campaign in support of political prisoners." So she and another comrade, Baba Herman Ferguson, who has his own history, right, as a lending member, organizing member of RAM, Revolutionary Action Movement, and then also became the secretary or treasurer for Al Haj Malik Shabazz organization of African American Unity.
Yes, sir.
Right. So at one point he was charged with a conspiracy by the authorities, COINTELPRO, and he went into exile. And upon his return, he had to do time in Attica, right? He did time in Attica. After he got out prison in Attica, he returned back into the movement. And so she and Safiya Bukhari and Baba Herman Ferguson came to see me in an Eastern Correctional Facility where I was at the time. And we had to sit down, had a meeting, and we decided that we're going to reestablish the Jericho March together. And it took us 2 years. In 1998, we established the Jericho March Baba Herbert Ferguson, Safiya Bukhari, and myself. And that began the process from which we have today the Jericho Amnesty Movement, the longest organization in support of political prisoners in the United States, the premier organization in support of political prisoners in the United States. And it's been going on for the last 22, 23 years now, right, since 1998. Right, it's been going on. And so, although I'm the only the living co-founder of Jericho Movement, right, the spirit of Safiya Bukhari, Safiya, still is maintained within the understanding of Jericho and the support base that is established for our political prisoners in this country. So there's not much more that I can say about the sister other than her bravery, her determination, her tenacity, her love for our people, right? Not only love for our people, love for humanity. You know, because she always stressed the necessity for us to have allies, to create allies, and have others to support the goals and objectives that we are trying to achieve in regards to not only the release of our political prisoners, but building our campaign for national liberation, independence of Black, brown, and indigenous people. I'm certain that if she had lived, that she would have been an integral part of building the International Tribunal, and will be working with us today of the Spirit of Mandela National Coalition, building towards the People's Senate and other campaigns that we are dealing with today. So that is Safiya Bukhari. If anybody really wants to understand her thinking, right, please get her readings. Get her book, The War Before, Safiya Bukhari, and go to YouTube. Type her name in YouTube and watch the videos that she talks and she lectures. Right, it's beautiful story that she has to tell.
I wanted to ask you though, in the time that we have, unfortunately I didn't get to work with Safiya. I met her once in 1990 in the Bay Area. I think it was during the first war against Iraq, and it was like a 2-day event. The first day I saw her, she was with a brother by the name of Breeze Barrow.
Yes.
Kai Lumumba Barrow, Breeze. And she was dressed, regular, like a regular individual. And the next day she had on this uniform. And I think someone told me that she was she a general in the Black Legion or the Provisional Government Republic of New Africa? Not only was she an office holder, she was a general in their armed forces. Can you talk about that?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you too much about it because, again, remember, I was in prison. I was in prison 49 years. But in fact, she definitely was elected to become a military officer in our provisional government army, right, or a provisional army for the Republic of New Africa. And she maintained that position, I think, for about 3 years until she finally resigned the position. And that what that does, it informs us of the testimony, informs us of how she was not only dedicated, but how people responded to her, right? And they recognized her leadership.
Yes,
they recognized her accountability to the people and to the government. And that was extremely important. And so for us to give that kind of respect, and not only the issues of, because we have to deal with the issues of chauvinism and sexism in our struggle, right? And she adhered to the ideals of her leadership, and people respected that idea of her leadership as a Black woman, right? As a new African woman. And she supported the idea of our liberation and independence by any means necessary.
Yes.
So it's important that we note, right, that within our movement, within our struggle, that we do have our female counterpart, right? I don't like to use that word, but I think the only way I can define it, our female counterpart who can rise to the level of being a general, right, in our movement, right? As of today, the New African Provisional Government of New Africa is led. President is a woman, right?
Yes,
and we need to respect that. Those who identify themselves as New Africans need to identify and respect the fact that that her sister is the president of our provisional government. And Safiya, I would not, if she had survived, her own illnesses, I would not uh, undermine the possibility that she would have became a rise to that level of respect and recognition of her contribution to our struggle. I'm not saying that she would want to, but she will probably have been elected, right, because of her tenacity, because of her dedication, because of her sacrifice for our overall struggle.
Mm-hmm. Safiya Bukhari was an actual soldier, not just somebody who gathered support for armed struggle or the armed strugglers. She herself participated in armed struggle to free our people, was captured participating in armed struggle. And even though in her book, she talks about the fact that she really didn't see herself as a writer or didn't want to be seen as a writer, didn't really want to be out there. She's obviously a brilliant thinker, theorist, and I would say propagandist, because I want to say one of the first ways that I heard about you, I heard about the case, the New York Three. At the time, the name was Anthony Bottom, Herman Bell, and Albert Washington.
Yes.
And there was a video. Well, there's a film out there in the world called Badge of the Assassin,
Yes.
based on the book Badge of the Assassin that was written by, I think, a district attorney in New York, which
Yes.
talks about a cop killing.
Yes.
And then CBS made a movie, which I saw,
Yes.
called the same name.
Horrible
Badge of the
movie.
Assassin. But here's the thing. I
Yeah.
got my hands on a VHS videotape, and it was called CVS versus the New York Three. And I'm like, what is this about? And it's Safiya going through that movie point by point, the lies and the inaccuracies. And I remember specifically, I can't remember all the actors' names. One of the brothers who portrayed of the New York Three, he was the black guy who played a district attorney in Law and Order at one point. The other one, I think his name was Larry Riley. He was in Soldier Story and some other things. And I can't remember the third person. But when when they would come on screen, there was a banner that would go underneath them, and it would say, "Not Anthony Bottom, not Bell, not Albert Washington."
Yeah.
It was brilliant, but also hilarious at the same time. But you and others have talked about the fact that Safiya not only visited y'all, was actually trying to get y'all out.
Exactly right. Well, that's the reason why she went underground. Initially went underground. There was an effort to get us out what we called the Tombs. It was a Manhattan house of detention, and she and some comrades went in. And I guess I can share this. She went in. She and some comrades went in at a time where they were visiting, right, and try to get an escape route through the sewer system. And to get us out, and then get through escape route through the sewer system, and unfortunately, due to technical issues, that getting out was not possible. But they was able to capture a couple of prison guards and put them in handcuffs. Took their handcuffs and handcuffed them to the radiators. We didn't hurt anyone. Well, it wasn't a question of hurting anyone. The issue was trying to get us out. And she was very adamant about her team, because she's the head of that team, right? Putting that team together and to make this move to efforts to get us out. And that led to she going directly really into the underground with snafus, debacles, whatever you want to call it, right? But the attempt was made, the effort was made, right? And that's what's important. That's what is historic. Where you have a sister leading a team, a cadre of armed activists, revolutionaries, right, making a serious attempt to free our comrades, right. Not too many women, not too many guys, as far as that goes. Just wanted to make that kind of make that kind of effort, right, or have that kind of spirit and heart and love, for our people and for our struggle. And so, yeah. Yeah.
And you could say she's literally the modern day Harriet Tubman.
I would not deny that. right? She and you know, we have a lot of people talk about what Asada taught me, right? You know, our dear brother sister who's in Cuba right now, right? As a result of efforts from us, from our movement, right? Successively getting her out of prison, right? And getting her over to Cuba. See, that's the kind of network we had at that time. That's the kind of organizations that we had at that time, underground organizations that we had at that time, where we was able to make those kind of bold, audacious moves, right? And move people from coast to coast, right? Or out of the country if necessary. So we have to figure out ways how to recognize that and understand the necessity for that, the type of both above ground organization as well as underground organization.
Yes, sir. Now we've talked about Kwazi's humanity, in addition to the humanity that moves these people to make such bold revolutionary moves. Kwazi, yourself, Safiya's humanity. I want to ask you, if you don't mind sharing. It appears that she had this, and I know this just from reading. I don't know, I wasn't there. But looking at the readings, it appears she had a very close relationship with Nur and with you all as the New York Three. I'm assuming close with all of them because she's trying to get them free. But, you know, you're in prison. This sister has tried to get you out, valiantly tried to get you out, tried to get a lot of comrades out. As you said, she was your initial contact in the underground, and you're in prison and you hear that she has passed away.
Yeah, I was hurt. There's no two ways about it. I was devastated, right? Because I had placed so much. I was dependent upon my dear sister, comrade, Safiya Bukhari, in so many different ways. You know, I'm originally from California, and so when my family used to come visit me in New York, they stayed with Safiya, right? At one point in time, my daughter, who I was essentially estranged with, because she was in the womb when I got captured, so I never spent a year or a day in the streets with her. But Safiya Bukhari was assured that my daughter, when she was in her teens, came to New York, spent the summer with me, right? Living with Safiya, right? And she made sure that she came. She and dear sister Yuri Kochiyama, right? A lot of people don't know about Yuri, but Yuri Kochiyama, another dedicated, serious revolutionary. They made sure that my daughter came to see me. My mom's came to see me. So I was very much dependent upon Safiya in very different ways, other than just the politics and the movement and the struggle on a very personal level. But not only for myself, but also for she worked in behalf of Noah, worked in behalf of Herman, right, and many other comrades. So that was a loss, when she passed, and not only a loss for us on a personal level, but a loss for the movement, right? In terms of the generalship, although not a general in the military sense of it, but the generalship of her leadership. Yeah. So it's been difficult trying to. I don't think she can be replaced. To be honest with you, But we are always in the move of cultivating and developing, and sisters are coming back into the struggle with that kind of understanding of dedication based upon the example that she laid.
And she was also a leading advocate, should I say, in the creation of the Free Mumia Abu Jamal Coalition. Efforts outside of Philadelphia to get Mumia free.
I remember she coming to visit me and basically telling me, she didn't ask me, she said, listen, this is what I'm going to do, right? I said, I'm going to split my time. I'm going to split my time and start working on Mumia's case. And I said, you have to. He's on death row, right? We cannot allow them to kill Mumia, right? So yes, sis, go take care of that business, right? Put that thing together. Work on that. Put that thing together, right? And that's what she did. And they established the international committee in support of my brother Mumia. All right. Yes, that she was very instrumental in doing that, and it hooked up with Pan Africa and the African family. and supporting building the campaign in support of Mumia. And ultimately, we were successful in getting him off death row. We have not yet got him out yet, right? That is the campaign that we need to do. We need to get him out, as we need to get out Varanza, as we need to get out Poindexter, as we need to get out Kwame Shakur and Jojo Bowen, and many, many others that we have inside that need to be released from prison. They're the elders now, right? They're elders. Why are they holding them in these prisons today? Only reason why they're holding them because of the politics.
Exactly.
Politics and what they represent.
Yes,
okay?
sir.
But we need them out.
Yes, sir, because they went against the state. Absolutely. Absolutely. Baba, when I called you earlier, I called you in the car. We see the seatbelt on you. I don't want to hold you. I would love to hold you, but I don't want to hold you. I know your family needs you. Any last words around what Safiya Bukhari meant and means for us today?
Yes. Safiya Bukhari represents Black excellence, right? And I mean that in a revolutionary term, revolutionary understanding what Black excellence is. The ability and the willingness to sacrifice one's life, the ultimate sacrifice, one's life with the love and support of our people in our struggle. She represents the not only the philosophy, but the theory of revolution, right? The theory and practice, right? Theory and practice in revolutionary determination, right? She also represents, for me, right, love for our people, right? Uncompromising love for our people, right? And if we can emulate that, right, on any level, right, for sisters to emulate that on any level, that would be a great contribution. That would be a great way to represent or support the legacy and honor the legacy of this dear sister. Yeah, that's it. All right. You know, Che Guevara once said, and I paraphrase, that revolutionaries are motivated by this strong sense of love, right? Yeah, that's Safiya Bukhari.
She had a love for our people.
Fact.
Lion-sized love for our people. And want to salute you, Baba. Thank you for your sacrifice, for your work. And you are
Let me make one other point too. Let me make one other point, right?
Yes, sir.
If Safiya was alive today, she would be a strong advocate for the building of the People's Senate, right? She would be a strong advocate for organizing Front for the Liberation of the New African Nation, right? And understanding that that is another level of struggle that we need to engage in. She would be a strong advocate in opposition to the AfroCon, right? Yeah. And the efforts of the United States imperialism to recolonize parts of Africa. She will understand the ideals of Pan-Africanism, right, and internationalism, and recognize that the world will not be free until Black people are free.
Tell us real quick, what is the Senate you're talking about? What is Frolanon, and what is the Spirit of Mandela?
Okay, thank you for asking that question. In October 25th, 2021, we had organized what we called the International Tribunal. The International Tribunal was held at the Malcolm X Betty Shabazz Memorial Educational and Cultural Center in Harlem, the place where El Haj Malik Shabazz was assassinated, which was known as the Audubon Room, right? So we held the International Tribunal there, and we brought 5 charges of genocides against the United States. 5 charges of genocides, right? Now, that's not the first time the United States has been charged with genocide. 70 years earlier, December 17th, 1951, about 2 months after I was born, the great Paul Robeson, the great W.D. Du Bois, the great William Patterson had brought charges against the United States of charges of genocides, right? And they were hindered from ensuring that the United Nations was able to hear those charges. In fact, the FBI prevented Paul Robeson from leaving the country, and they tried to prevent William Patterson from coming back to the country. 70 years later, we brought the same charges again. We charged genocides, and we had 9 jurors, international jurors, come to the United States, hear testimony from 30 witnesses, and boxes of documents, and they decided we had a verdict deciding that the United States was guilty of genocides against Black, brown, and indigenous people on 5 charges: mass incarceration, police killing, state-sponsored murder and killing of our people, environmental racism, health inequities, and the existence of political prisoners. And you look at it cumulatively, how that impacts our community, we definitely can say that they have been involved and engaged in genocidal practices in the United States. So therefore, based upon the verdict that we obtained, unfortunately, that it took 70 years to get a verdict from the international community, international body of jurists, right, on the issue of genocides, we decided the necessity for us as a people to remove ourselves from any future harm, right, any continuing harm of this system, of this genocidal system against Black, brown, indigenous people, right? And therefore, we decided that in this struggle, right, to remove ourselves from harm, that it's necessary for us to build alternative institutions of governing. And we recognize that this government does not function in the best interest of Black, brown, and indigenous people. And so what we're going to do, and what we are doing, is building what we call a People's Senate, right? Where we are organizing people to govern themselves, be self-governed in many ways. We are establishing people assemblies across the country, and out of each of those assemblies in these regions that we are organizing, that people will elect a representative who will then become a senator, right? And therefore, this group of senators, we will be able to sit down and discuss the various social, economic, and political means for which we can create alternative institutions of governing, right, with the support of the international community, all right, which is also important. And so that's what the People Senate. People can go to the spiritofmandela.org/People Senate and sign up to learn more about the People Senate and how they can be supportive and build up what we call, again, the People Senate. We have to create a new mechanisms of survival in this country. They have declared war, right? January 6th last year, when they stormed Congress, right? We know that if Black people had done that, if brown people had stormed Congress, there would have been bodies laid out all over the Congressional Plaza, right? How come there was no bodies laid out when white folks is doing that, right? Because they're all on the same page.
Same team.
Right? They may not like how they went about doing what they did, but in terms of nullifying the Black vote, they support that, right? They support that, right? Trying to figure out ways how to prevent us from having any degree of real substantial power in this country, right? And so with that understanding, it is required of us to figure out ways how to defend ourselves, right, against the onslaught of the coming onslaught of what was a low intensity conflict to overt forms of conflict, of war, right? I'll give you an example of police murder and terror. When a brother in Chicago, a young kid in Chicago, they shot at this kid 100 times, hitting him 60 times. Only takes one bullet to kill a person. Why would they have to shoot a man 60 times, right? Fill his body up 60 times. Why? Because they want to impose a form of terror in our community. Letting us know this is what they will do.
Yes, sir.
You understand what I'm saying, right?
Police terrorism.
Yeah, absolutely. So what more do we need to learn from these people? From the days of lynching to the continuing days of lynching like Floyd, right? Or continuing days of lynching like Michael Brown, continuing days of lynching like Breonna Taylor, continuing days of lynching for brothers and sisters across this country who's being murdered by state-sponsored terror, all right? Come on, people. Let's recognize what's going on here, right? Mass incarceration. Why is the United States supposed to be the richest country in the world, right? Why do they have more people in prison than any other industrialized state, industrialized nation in the world, right? Population control, right? And ensuring that Black, brown, and indigenous people are most held in prisons across this country. And what happens during that period of time? They have law that a 13-year-old can be sent to prison for life. 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So now I went in when I was 19, they get out to those 68. Lucky for me, I had a child in the womb before I went in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have no children. So you imagine, here you have 2 million people in prison, right? 75% of which are black and brown, right? From the age of their teens till they become old age people, gray-haired people, and they have not produced. They had an opportunity to reproduce. That's genocidal, and it's planned. All right? So that's the reason why for us, black people in this country, our population has not grown from 11 to 13% in the last 50 years. Our population is stagnant. Every other population in this country has grown. Not black folks. Not black folks. Right? Stagnant. And our population growth. Right? It's genocidal. We got to understand that. Right? And that's the reason why we have to charge these street tribes, right? We have to charge them of being betraying our people with the way that they are killing each other. This kind of black on black crime that is going on they're betraying us, right? And they need to be charged with that, right? And told specifically, listen, we are not the enemy of each other. We cannot be the enemy of each other. We cannot win that way, right? Against the system of oppression. And so we have to get our street tribes in order, right? Remember the Black Panther Party, for the most part, when they came, they organized the lumpen, right? What we call the lump proletariat, the street guys, the street kids. You know, I was a street kid. I was a street urchin when I joined the party, right? Yeah. I was hanging out, I was hanging out tough in the streets, you know, before I became disciplined in the movement, all right? We have to start recruiting these young boys, these young brothers, right, and get them back involved, these young sisters, get them back involved in the movement, back in the struggle. They want to belong to something valuable that gives them value, right? Because the system is not, right? We have a system that dehumanizes, devalues, and demeans black people in this country, right? And so our course of struggle is decolonize our minds, right? And of course, decolonize our minds, empower our people, right? Because we have been traumatized by a system of white supremacy, that we have been navigating for over 400 years. And you cannot tell me that the people living in the system of white supremacy for 400 years has not been traumatized.
Yes, sir.
Severely. We have.
Severe trauma. Absolutely.
Severe trauma. Right?
Absolutely.
To the point as Al-Haj Malik Shabazz in May 5th, and one of his May 5th, I think 1962 speech, Al-Haj Malik Shabazz asked the question, who taught you to hate yourself? Right? You go to YouTube. You can go to YouTube right now. I'll go to YouTube, put up Malcolm X, right? His speech, who taught you to hate yourself, and listen to that speech. Tell me he's not talking about what's going on today. Right? What's going on today? And so we need to be able to create a new mechanism of liberation. And that's why we're building what we're building, we call it Falling On, Front for Liberation of the New African Nation. Right? It is essential that we build this front, that we bring all those individuals who identify themselves as New Africans, right, who identify as New Africans, to bring them collectively together so we can build a national strategy moving forward, so we can build the decolonization programs moving forward and build an organization that would be substantially capable of supporting the movement to free the land, right, and our own national liberation and independence. Right. This is what I'm going to be talking about on Saturday when I go to this National Black Caucus on Saturday in Miami. It's going to be a powerful event for us to really talk about. Now, this is organized by the Teamsters. This is the Teamsters, okay? And I don't, I'm surprised they would ask me to come and be their keynote, because I will not bite my tongue.
No, right? Sir.
Okay, so they got to understand what we're talking about here, right? So yeah, well, this is what we're doing. This is how we're moving forward. We are rebuilding, restructuring, reorganizing our struggle for national liberation and independence in this country, because the United States have been found guilty of genocide against Black, brown, indigenous people. We got to remove ourselves from harm. We got to stop it, period. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that.
spiritofmandela.org. And how can folks get information on Frolinon?
Frolinon, they can contact me, Jalil Muntaqim. We have not established a website yet at this point in time. I don't know whether we're going to establish a website or at some point in time. But they can contact me. They can contact my comrade Abbas Muntaqim and the People's Program in California. Those who are on the inside, they can contact Kwame Shakur, the People's Prisoners Lives Matter organizer, chairman of Prisoners Lives Matter. And again, we are building our base across the country.
But how can folks get in touch with you to get this information on Frolinon?
Okay. They get the information by contacting jalil.muntaqim@gmail.com.
Jalil.muntaqim@gmail.com.
@gmail.com.
JALIL.MUNTAQIM.
Right. At gmail.com. And if they really want to learn more about Frolinon, the national strategy of Frolinon, then I'm going to have to tell them they got to get my book.
I was going to say, don't you have a book, Baba? Let us know about the book now.
Okay.
Come on now. Come on.
We have a book. The book is called We Are Our Own Liberators. We are our own liberators, right? And it can be gotten at Black Dragon, one word, blackdragonmme.com. blackdragonmme.com. And in the book, it describes, it details what Frolinon is, the national strategy of Frolinon, how to build, it actually is a DYI, right? In terms of how to build a cadre and cadre organization and what we're trying to achieve or going forward. On this tomorrow, Saturday, on this presentation Saturday, I will be talking about how to organize what they call a new African union, right? A workers' union that we need to establish. So I'll be talking to the Teamsters, the Black Teamsters, about that, right? With those who are actually understand the nature of our struggle and what we're trying to deal with going forward. We have to we have to be in new institutions for liberation and independence.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Baba, for your time. Thank your family for letting us borrow you today. We appreciate you so much. Please travel safe, give them hell, and get back to it safely.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate you. And my love to you, my love to the fam, and my love to our people. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes. Wa alaikum assalam. Free the land.
Free the land, sis. By any means necessary.
Yes, sir. So that was Baba Jalil Muntaqim, one of the comrades in arms of Safiya Bukhari, our Lioness for Liberation. I want to play a couple of videos before we get out and make a couple of more statements. Now, y'all know I've been having issues with the technology, so just hold on for me. Hold on. Today is August 17th. This is the birth date of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, one of the organizers of the largest mass movement of Black people in the world in history, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And we talked about the fact that Safiya was dedicated to freedom for Mumia Abu-Jamal, our brother, imprisoned journalist in Philadelphia. He was on death row. He's been taken off death row, but unfortunately he is still inside and he needs to come home. But in 1995, well, from 1981 to 1995, Mumia was on death row under threat of death for the killing of a Philadelphia police officer back in 1981. In 1995, the state finally signed his death warrant. They signed the date. They said they wanted to execute Mumia Abu-Jamal. That date was August 17th, 1995, the birth date of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And it was at that point that the movement that had already existed to free Mumia went into overdrive and rose up and said, hell no. They were able to get a stay of execution. They were able eventually, this movement, to get him off death row, as I said, but he is still incarcerated. There is still the call for a new trial, but at this point, he should just go on and be released. He has maintained his innocence throughout, but even if he had did it, even if he had done it, we know of hundreds, if not thousands of cases of people who committed murder, not manslaughter, murder, did time and were released, were not sentenced to life without parole, or were not kept in forever. They were able to come out. And at least Mumia, if they can't give him a new trial in which we are confident he will be found innocent, just let him out because he's already done his time. But again, I want to share this video real quick. This is Safiya speaking at a rally in Philadelphia in August 1995, a few days after the warrant for Mumia's death has been signed.
Brothers and sisters, I'd like to introduce Brother Safiya. Sister Safiya, Coalition to Save Brother Mumia Abdul, Black Panther Party member, a sister who has spent time behind the walls and is now out here fighting to release the brothers and sisters who are still behind those walls. Sister Safiya.
Free Mumia! All power to the people! Assalamu alaikum! Right on! Whatever else. On Monday, when I heard about the failed execution, I was in Cuba. I was in Cuba where people are struggling and behind us 100% in the struggle to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. And one of the things they were concerned about, and I was concerned about, is whether or not that we recognize the fact that we haven't freed Mumia. This is just a temporary victory that can go away at any time if we forget to carry on the work of getting a new trial and freeing Mumia Abu-Jamal. I'm glad to see all of you out there. And I'm glad to see the exuberance of the work that's being done and the full reasonableness of the coalition and the unity around this issue. But I want to say that this system is diabolical. Mumia is still in Judge Sabo's courtroom. And as long as he's in Judge Sabo's courtroom, Judge Sabo can take back that stay anytime he wants to take it back. We have to be cognizant of the fact that we have not won this war yet. That we have a reprieve. We have a reprieve that we have to be very aware of, that the 16th, the 17th has not passed. That there's a warrant out there with Mumia's name on it that says execution on the 17th of October, of August, of August. And until the 17th passed, that warrant can still be put into effect. We have to be clear on this. We have not won yet. We have not passed the 17th of August. We cannot lay down our homes. We cannot go back in our bedrooms and sleep soundly. We cannot stop the vigilance. We have to be very astute. We have to understand that this system does not want Mumia on the street. We have a break so that we can look at it and we can continue to push forward the issue. We can still go out there and educate the people. We have to still go out there and make the politicians accountable. We have to still go out there and make the people in the boardroom accountable. We have to put in place an economic boycott and hit them where it hurts, in their pockets. We have to make sure they understand that we are not appeased by a state, that we understand that a child Mumia is home out here with us on the street, carrying on the work of organizing, that we have not won the war. We have to understand that this is just a precursor of what is to come. The struggle has to continue. That we have to go out there, and all those people have not taken a position on freedom of Mumia Abu-Jamal. They have to take a position. No one is accepted from this position. We have to recognize the fact that when the NABJA had that conference on August 16th, it's still the day before August 17th. We cannot let them stop. We cannot let
So I think because I had my microphone on, that may have made the volume low. But if you go to YouTube, look up Safiya Bukhari, Philly 1995, you can hear it in all of its glory. Again, as Baba Jalil said, go to YouTube and put in Safiya's name and you will see the various videos that are out there on Safiya, her speaking in her own words. When we started, we were listening to a commentary that Mumia Abu Jamal did about our sister, and there were images of Safiya speaking. You can find those videos, some of which were put up by the Rebuild Collective, which is the publisher of the New African Independence Movement periodical Rebuild. I'm a member of that collective also. So go to YouTube. You can check out those videos. Jericho Amnesty Coalition, I believe, has those videos. The Jericho Amnesty Coalition, of which Safiya and Jalil are founders. They've got videos on YouTube. Support the Jericho Amnesty Coalition in their efforts to get out the remaining political prisoners and prisoners of war. Before we get up out of here, I wanted to, again, stress the need to understand and talk about Safiya's life and her legacy. We have her words. The War Before is a book of her collected writings. Shout out to Laura Whitehorn, one of the white anti-imperialist political prisoners imprisoned for her work on behalf of New African Liberation, who took that manuscript to the Feminist Press and got it published. Big shout out to her for that. I also wanted to talk about this real quick. Let's see here. So one of the essays, and I think it's in the beginning of the book, The War Before, it's called Coming of Age, A New African Revolutionary by Safiya Bukhari. She first wrote that in 1979, and it had been passed around and reprinted in so many places, one of which, as you can see, was Spear and Shield Publications. They are the ones who have put out the works of Atiba Shana, Brother Yaki Sales, Meditations on the Writings of Frantz Fanon, Brother Sanyika Shakur, the Crossroad Journals, the Vito Wawatu Notebooks, and of course, Rebuild, the periodical. So this essay that she first wrote in 1979 is, I think, one of the first essays in the book, The War Before. And let's see here. And as per usual, you'll see it when you get the, you'll see it better. I'm trying my best, y'all. It's not necessarily working out. But when you get the book, if you haven't gotten the book already, The War Before, let's see. Safiya Bukhari was and remains a catalytic part of the movement. According to her own accounts, she was radicalized into the Black Panther Party at the business end of a billy club. Born Bernice Jones in the Bronx in 1950. It's important that you remember that name, Bernice Jones. Why is that important? One of the reasons it's important is because of this person right here. That's the cover of the book, The War Before, the true life story of becoming a Black Panther, keeping the faith in prison and fighting for those left behind. Forward by Angela Davis, afterward by Mumia Abu Jamal. One of the reasons why that name is important is because of this brother right here. This is Mark Essex. Mark Essex was in the United States Navy, and he was having difficulty. This is the real short wham bam version. He was having difficulties with the racism in the U.S. Navy, like a lot of brothers during the 60s, late 60s, fighting the war in Vietnam, but also having to navigate and be a Black man in the United States of America. He becomes disillusioned. He becomes angry. He becomes radicalized. He starts looking around for a way to become involved, a way to strike back. Not only just make a contribution, but to strike back. So he does what Assata Shakur does. He looks around the country and says, I think I'm going to take a trip. He was in Peoria, Illinois. He says, I'm going to go to New York City. I'm going to check out the Panthers. Now, at the time he does this, this is around 70, 71, maybe 72. And the chapter in New York, Harlem chapter, Bronx chapter, New York chapter, etc., their leadership has been decimated because everybody's in prison, locked up on the Panther 21 trumped up charges, right? So it's hardly anybody there except for Bernice Jones. And the reason why Mark Essex is important is because at a certain point after his trip, he goes back home to New Orleans, or not home, but he ends up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and he's sniping police officers and other white racists in New Orleans, Louisiana. Even Gil Scott-Heron did a song about him. A friend of mine used to quote the lyrics to that song all the time. This is a book called A Terrible Thunder by Peter Hernon, the story of the New Orleans sniper. And for some reason, it's had 3 different covers. I'm not sure. 3 different covers. This was the first cover when the book came out. Then it looked like this cover. And this is the cover of the book that I have. But it's all one story. Edwin Cooper is a detective in the intelligence division of the New York City Police Department. A Black, he has spent years investigating the more violent of the militant groups that sprouted during the racial upheavals of the 1960s. Often working deep underground, we know what that means, Cooper would disappear weeks at a time, carefully culling a network of contacts for information on the Black Panthers and other militants operating in New York City. The fruit of his work is stored in his head. Cooper seldom keeps written records of his undercover activities. An exception is a thin folder bearing the name Mark Essex. Cooper knows about Essex because shortly after his discharge from the Navy, probably that same month of February, the former sailor went to New York and got in touch with what was then the most militant wing of the Black Panthers. He contacted Bernice Jones, the secretary for the Panthers' New York chapter in Harlem, said Cooper, reading from a single sheet of paper that contains only 2 scanty paragraphs of information, some of it biographical. He was by himself and operated out of the Panther office at 2026 7th Avenue. At the time, that was the headquarters for the Eldridge Cleaver faction of the party. We skip over to another page and we have this. During his stay with the Panthers, Essex, according to Cooper, was in closest contact with Bernice Jones, one of the few free hardcore members who had not gone underground in the wake of the trials and inter-party warfare. Now, this is a quote from this undercover pig. There's no telling what sort of indoctrination Essex got from Bernice, Cooper said. She was eventually arrested in Norfolk, Virginia, trying to rob a store with 2 other Panthers. The owner turned out to be a Wyatt Earp, and a couple of them got shot bad. Bernice got 40 years. Now, we know that that's a lie. Baba Masai Ehihosi, who is still here with us, and Safiya Bukhari's account tell us that they were not trying to rob the store, that they were attacked, they were ambushed, and a brother by the name of Kambozi was murdered. But when Baba Jalil talks about the theory and practice of revolution, and we saw excerpts from Battle of Algiers a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I had difficulty on that day. The point being, this is a time period where revolution is in the air. You can almost breathe it, pretty much breathe it. This is the context that folks are operating in. And Mario Bedele, co-founder and president of the Provisional Government of Republic of New Africa, used to say, when you're at war, that means war has been declared on you and you have accepted that declaration and y'all go ahead at it. I'm paraphrasing, mind you. Black folks not going ahead at it. So we might not be at war, but we are in a war. When Sundiata and Asada talk about the fact that they were ambushed on the New Jersey Turnpike, that New York police had license plates and descriptions of all the Panther cars, that's what they're talking about. That's why people are going underground, because they have been targeted. They cannot function as legitimate, legal, community activists. Why? Because of the idea of challenging the U.S. state. So then they go underground to really challenge the U.S. state. So this is the context that Safiya is operating in. This is what she imparts to Mark Essex, who then goes off to New Orleans and do what he do. And eventually Safiya ends up going underground and being a part of the armed underground and getting captured. So two things about that real quick. Sundiata and Assata were among the first to be captured, May of 73. Safiya and Masai were captured later on in 73, but they were the first to stand up and declare, we are prisoners of war, we are New African citizens, and this court has no right, no jurisdiction to try us. That's something to remember. That's something to recognize. The other thing I want to recognize real quick before we get up out of here, what time we got? Yeah. I want to talk real quick about Black women and their reproductive health. Why do I want to talk about that? I was on a Zoom conference call with Baba Jalil the other night, and that was the first time. I had always heard about Safiya and her escapes. It's like legendary. After she passed in August of 2003, we held a memorial for her here in Los Angeles. Yuri Kochiyama came and spoke, and she just nonchalantly talked about there was a knock at the door one night, and her husband was like, it's for you, because he already knew. Yuri gets up, opens the door, and it's Safiya. She's escaped from prison. She didn't divulge too many details. She said, I gave her some food, some money, and a coat, and she said Safiya was gone as quickly as she had come. And I'm just looking at her like, you just act like your neighbor knocked on the door and asked you, could they borrow something? That's how nonchalantly she told the story. That's how plugged in Yuri Kochiyama was to our community. But I digress. Black women and their reproductive health. So in the last several years, and I want brothers to understand this in particular, because most of us sisters, we already understand this. The last few years, we've been talking more and more about fibroids and the damage they are causing. Many times fibroids, which are these tumors that are usually not cancerous, tumors that form on and in the uterus of Black women. Many times they're not cancerous. Sometimes they're not painful, but there are times when they cause pain, specifically during menstruation. There are times when they create blockages and a sister can't get pregnant. There are times when they make sexual intercourse difficult and painful. But for many sisters, including myself, what it means is almost a long, drawn out, endless menstrual cycle. I'm talking long. Some sisters menstruate for 3 days, maybe 7 days. If you have fibroids, you can go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks with no respite. Okay? Basically, you bleeding all over the place. Now, this is what we've been talking about more and more and trying to get more and more of an understanding and medical intervention for in these last 10, 15, 20 years. Imagine in 1973, 1974, 1975. This is the first time I had ever heard that the reason Safiya escaped was because of fibroids. They had talked about the fact that she needed medical attention and wasn't getting it, but they never said what it was. You're basically bleeding and it's not stopping. You are becoming tired. You are becoming lightheaded, becoming lethargic. You can't do anything. And this is happening to her while she's under, quote unquote, the care of the state. And they're telling her, whatever. Remember when Assata was imprisoned and she was pregnant, the don't care attitude that the prison had for Assata. Well, if you go to the bathroom and you see your baby, oh well, how they didn't give a damn about us. Safiya said, bet. Safiya got herself out of prison to go get help for those fibroids. when they caught her and brought her back, she explained why she escaped. And like Baba said, they couldn't stick that charge on her. In other words, they couldn't give her more time because she was correct. That is an example, not only of medical neglect, which we suffer inside and outside of the institutions. This is an example of what this sister in particular did about it. I think she needs to be remembered, if for nothing else, just that right there. A sister who was breaking herself out and breaking other folks out, just like with Kwesi Balagoon. So it's not my intention or purpose to stay up here running my mouth. I would love to. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to leave you all. No, not that. No, not that. Yes, that. I'm going to leave you all with this clip from Jared Ball and Ashanti Alston speaking earlier this year on Safiya Bukhari. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You know, I'm afraid to tip over to the comments because I don't want stuff to go haywire. I'm trying to present information to y'all that I think is compelling, informative, that you need, and I'm trying to make it presented to you in a way that's not too shabby, but you know, I got issues. Y'all know I be having issues. But yeah, I'm going to end with this video of Jared and Ashanti speaking, and we're going to get up out of here. We're going to get up out of here. Y'all stay safe. Continue to press the like. I know y'all like this video by now. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that share button. Share this video. Make sure you subscribe so that you will get notices of all the other wonderful programs we have on Black Power Media. Our numbers are up. We are at 29.6 thousand subscribers. We got to keep growing. I think we offer a pretty good alternative to what else is out there, despite how I be jacking up the presentation. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Make sure you like the videos. Tell somebody about Black Power Media. All right? Y'all stay safe. Peace out.
That said, I do want to take one quick detour because in trying to prepare for today and going back and reading some of your work on this, there are two names that come up and came up again in reading that work that I do at least want to invite you to say a word or two about, as much as little as you like. And of course, we can always come back to talk about them as well. One, of course, is Safiya Bukhari, and the other is Kwesi Balagoon, the warlord born on Sunday. And I just, you know, you have a personal and long political comradeship with both, and they're very important people we don't talk and hear enough about. But I just wanted to start there before we went any farther. If you would, you know, say what you would want to about either and both of them.
Sure. Let me start off with Safiya. Coming into the Black Panther Party in Plainfield, New Jersey, we had started a chapter, and so there was always this relationship with Newark, Jersey City, and then the Harlem office of the Black Panther Party. At some point, Safiya was pretty much in charge of the Harlem office. So in the back and forth, you know, we get to know Safiya, and pretty much fall up under her guidance because of her role in that chapter. And that Harlem chapter at the time, this is after the split, was almost like the center chapter for even international folks. Sometimes you're sitting in the office or you're doing work around the office. Here comes some Japanese activists coming through, or some activists from the motherland and stuff like that, and they make sure that they come to the Harlem office. At some point, in the relationship, and it's just a comrade relationship. She approaches me and asks me if I would become a part of a cell in the Black Liberation Army with a specific mission to help liberate some political prisoners. And I said, well, let me think about it. And so I come back a week later. I'm like, you know, I'm down, and I'm bringing a comrade with me. So even at that point, I clearly understood her role as that link between the above ground community organizing and other things that the Black Panther Party chapters did in the community, and the more secretive underground. And from there, I'm kind of directed to meet other folks, and then starts my process as, in the beginning, still above ground Panther, but transitioning into the ranks of the Black Liberation Army. At some point, our unit takes off to do what we was assigned to do, which led up to trying to help liberate political prisoners out of the Tombs, Manhattan House of Detention. Though we wasn't successful, we were able to get away, and that's a long story itself.
And I do want to direct people to hear that story in that video, because you did share at least some of it in the Soldier Stories joint. It's powerful, so please, I want people to go check that out. But yeah, sorry, please continue. Yeah.
So at some point we're under and we're moving, and then during the course of a bank expropriation in New Haven, Connecticut, shootout, everything. 3 of our comrades were captured there, and the rest were able to get away. But then with the convictions, state and federal court, we were sentenced to different sentences from 5 to 25 years to 20 year sentences and stuff like that. During the time that I'm incarcerated, though, she and her crew, we find out that she's now underground and a part of another cell of the BLA. And there's an incident in Virginia where her and other comrades were fired upon kind of out of the blue by the father and son of this store, whatever he went through his mind when he seen these Black folks walking into his store. One of our comrades was killed, and Safiya and Masai Ehehosi was captured. And Masai was shot in the face and back, and then so here's 2 more comrades who are now sentenced. During the years, like we're all trying to stay in touch, work on getting out of these prisons and all like that. But then at some point, me and Safiya's letters started to get a bit more intimate, and found ourselves writing each other more. After her escape attempt and then recapture, and then eventually when she got out, she back in New York. And at some point, a few years later, my own parole is starting to come up. A year before I got out, we actually ended up getting married in the prison. And then a year later, then I'm out. And that's kind of how we got together, and it was all from, that initial meeting as comrades, and the closeness that happens when comrades are working under certain conditions, sometimes tense conditions, brings out feelings. And when we both decided that we wanted to get married, like, okay, I was not even the marrying type. I somehow came out my mouth, and then I'm out. So I'm back in Harlem at first. I'm in Connecticut. New York won't let me come back in. My lawyer at the time had to do other things to get New York to allow me back in. And during the several months that I was in that period, I actually lived with my lawyer and his family, who, by the way, was one of the lawyers of Bobby Seale and Erica Huggins' New Haven legal team when the state was trying to frame them on what happened to Alex Rackley. So I'm back in New York, and then now we're living together. She had a daughter, Wanda, who became my daughter. But one of the things I'll say about that, and I want to say it only because I think it's important for people to get, when two people's lives come together, their stories come together too, which also means the trauma and the pain and other things that come. So sometimes it's not enough for just the dreams of freedom, the dreams of struggle that's going to hold you together. Sometimes you got to deal with them other things. And both me and her had issues that we was interfering with our relationship being able to go forward. So at some point, we separated, but we still maintain a relationship. And especially around Wanda. But one of the things that is so amazing about Safiya is that when she got out of prison, she hit the road running. She didn't give herself no time to recuperate everything, right into political prisoner work, and then her involvement with the Republic of New Africa. She was just like energetic without didn't seem like anything would slow her down. So coming out, I did a lot of work with her around political prisoners, and somewhat, I'm not a citizen of the Republic of New Africa, somewhat with the Republic too, because of our closeness. There was times where I was a bodyguard for President Mario Badelli, but I also meet a lot of comrades who were both above and under for the Republic of New Africa. But at some point, in our separation, I moved to Brooklyn, but we still maintain a relationship, a comrade relationship. And I always noticed that just because of who she was and being a woman, there was many people that was really inspired by her, especially other sisters, in the struggle, that to see Safiya in this position, getting up speaking, or helping to put some kind of organization together or some kind of work around specific political prisoners, the New York Three, whoever it was, she was like a light for many people, and I appreciated that. She got sick at some point, and I think it kind of caught us all by surprise when I got that call from the sister that she just died in the hospital. Unexpected, way too early, so much to give, stuff like that. But her Wanda carried on. I mean, Wanda was stepped up, to try to carry on a lot of this political prisoner work, especially. And then until Wanda had her own health issues and stuff like that, and she passed at the age of 45, But Safiya was tireless, and like all of us, not perfect, myself included, not perfect, but tireless in her commitment, man. Just tireless, and understood like this struggle has to be on many different levels. Understood it. So I'm honored, to have had that relationship, had gotten to know her on those different levels.
No,
I'm
thank you
happy
for
about
that. And I for the life of me, I can't get the pronunciation right, so I apologize for that.
Afrikan.